Reverend Dr. C.L. Franklin, Clarence LaVaughn Franklin. Hi, my name is Reverend Dr. Steve Bland Jr., Senior Pastor of the Liberty Temple Baptist Church and the Council of Baptist Pastors of Detroit and vicinity president, and also president of the Michigan Progressive Baptist Convention. And I'm pleased to join with this cadre of my colleagues and preachers in tribute to great voices, even as we share them during this African American History Month. Reverend C.L. Franklin, the golden voice of preaching, none like him, often imitated, never duplicated, but he was one who was a sounding brass voice and a trumpet for justice and righteousness and peace. Many a sermon has he preached, albums recorded, sermons in small hamlets, large cities, conventions, churches, storefronts, and large arenas. What a man, what a preacher. He often had the capacity and the flair and the essence that made people feel proud when he walked into the room. Smooth voice, well-groomed, well-kept. Father of the great famed singer Aretha Franklin, many other children, Reverend Cecil and others who he had the privilege to carry, but he also had many children, gospel children and ministers like my friend, the former pastor of the Third New Hope Baptist Church, Pastor E.L. Branch, and others who were offspring of this great golden voice preacher. Books were written by him, Nick Salvatore and Jeff, I believe his name was Titan, who wrote books about his life and can chronicle in them, but nobody really understood all the things he did. Thank God heaven keeps good books, because he was one who was a voice for the voiceless, and he looked out for the least, the left out, the looked over, the lost, had a passion for those persons, opened up places and homeless shelters, and had opportunity to give them money and gave them food. And right there at the New Bethel Church, where he pastored since 1946 until his death in 1984, many of them looked to him with great acclaim. So he walked tall among kings and princes, but he had the common touch among many people who came to know him. Yes, he was known for many a great sermon. One of the most popular, The Eagle Stirs a Nest, and so many others that he recorded, and people would often listen and hear and share. But one of the ones that I was impressed most was one I heard after he had passed. Actually, since I've been in Detroit for these last going on 18 years, one of my members bought me a cassette tape of a sermon that he preached about social justice. And I was amazed at the depth of what was happening in the height of the riots. Some of the things that were happening right here in the city of Detroit, at a time when people had closed their doors and nobody would allow in the Baptist church certain voices to be heard. But he spoke out against police brutality, talked about the issue of the unrest and the reason why the Negro at that time was uneasy and was doing things that ultimately wanted to let people know that they wanted to speak out against the injustices of that day. He was one of the only ones who would welcome the likes of a Reverend Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. to come to Detroit, where he could give his first speech of I Have a Dream right here in Detroit before he ever took it down to Washington, D.C. on the grounds by which he spoke it there. He got his practice here down at Cobo Hall, but preaching also and having meetings at the New Bethel Church. Civil rights icons like the Reverend Jackson and so many others got their inspiration from Dr. C.L. Franklin. People who often hailed him, and even to his death, one of the closest to walk with him and sound like him, Reverend Jasper Williams of the Salem Baptist Church there in Atlanta, Georgia, who preached his homegoing eulogy, talking about a good soldier of Jesus Christ. Oh, but he would be able to sing and share, and again, nobody could duplicate that wonderful, powerful, golden voice. And surely someone a feeble voice as I would not, but I have a prayer hymn that was similar to his, and I gained it from listening to that Sunday night broadcast. We would have it in Chicago. Clay Evans would preach, broadcast at 9, but at 10 o'clock right here in Detroit, everybody would tune in just to hear him sing, Lord, I stretch, oh, my hand. Help me, Lord, Lord, to thee. By that time, hands would be standing and people would be raising their hands. And he lift that voice and say, no, no, no other help. Then he cleared his throat. He was like, I know. By now somebody will be running and jumping and shouting. And he lift that voice and say, yeah, Lord, if thou with, Lord, withdraw thyself, oh Lord, from me. There shall I go. And then people be standing with their hands in the air like they were saluting the flag patriotically. People would be standing, oh Lord, and they would come and he would stand, oh Lord, and he would get ready, yes, to take his text, great God, and he would look at the audience and he slip on, yes, into another verse, oh Lord, and he'd say, what did, I'm about to get happy myself, thine own lesson in do. Listen, we about to get happy in church. The Reverend Dr. C.L. Franklin, long live.